So to start the mace, I got 2 used wrapping paper rolls. One of them is just a tad smaller than the other, so it will fit right inside of there. So you're just going to slide one roll right inside the other, all the way up, and that will give your mace handle a little more extra stability. If you want to make it even stronger, go ahead and add a 3rd roll right inside. You just have to cut a slit right down the middle so it'll fold up and slide right inside the other 2. So next I took a piece of Photomount Board and I cut out the 6 blade pieces of the mace. You can either draw these freehand, or I do have a template at thewoodlandelf.com/pattern/Sauron. So what you're going to do next is you're going to take some clay and you're just going to cover your entire piece of Photomount Board with the clay, and you want to make sure that this edge is thinner than this part because this is what's going to make the blade. When you're blending in the lines, an easy way to do that is to just take the flat edge of a paintbrush and roll it, and that just blends the seams together very well. You're going to be doing both sides of that piece of mount board. Now I'm just using regular sculpting clay here, but if I was going to do this again, I would probably use the FIMO clay just because it's a little bit stronger when it's dry, but this is what I had on hand, so I'm just using the regular sculpting clay. Now the regular sculpting clay is a little bit more flexible, but you have to be a little bit more delicate with it when it's dry because otherwise it'll shatter if you hit it too hard. If you need to make smooth edges on the inside, just rub it back and forth against a spare piece of cardboard and you get a nice smooth edge. So when you get down beyond the first notch, you're just going to take the round end of a paintbrush and then you're just going to kind of roll it to create an engraved design. If you look at pictures of Sauron's mace, there's a lot of engraving on the blades. So you don't have to copy it exactly, just use your imagination and kind of make your lines down it. And you don't want to do that on both sides of the blade. And if you have paintbrushes with different widths, it helps if you change them to make different shapes. There's a lot of swirls. So once you've got the piece of mount board entirely covered in clay, you're going to put a ridge here and here. Just roll a piece of clay between your fingers until it's nice and thin. And then you'll just stick it to the blade, and you can use the paintbrush again to just blend the seam right into the blade. Then you're just going to want to pinch the top to get a nice pointed ridge. And then of course you'll do the same thing to the other side on the same notches. So here is the completely covered mace blade, and you're just going to set that aside to dry. Usually takes about 3 days and then you can start painting. So here is the fully dried blade. You can see it gets a little lighter in color once it's dry, but it gives you that nice thin blade part here, and then it's thicker on the side that you're actually going to be sticking to the mace. But it's a good way to actually get that nice blade ridge. So of course the engraving is still visible. Next, take one of your dry mace blades and you're just going to hold it where you're going to glue it. Mark off where the bottom of the blade hits on your wrapping paper roll. And then you're going to divide the remaining area 3 equal sections. Then draw 6 lines an inch apart on a piece of cardstock and fold along each line. Then wrap that around your wrapping paper roll, and the 7th flap should go right over the first. Put a little bit of hot glue along the flap, and then just fold the end over. You'll do that with the upper 2 sections, and then you'll take a mix of 2 parts glue to 1 part water and give both of the cardstock sections a coating of that. It'll help increase the strength. Cut a strip of craft foam 1/2 inch wide, put a little bit of hot glue on it, and then you're going to cover the seam where the cardstock and the wrapping paper tube meet, and just cut off the end when you're all the way around. Then put some hot glue right over the top of that strip, and put a second layer of craft foam right over that. Then cut yourself some pieces of craft foam 1 inch wide and 2 inches long, and put some hot glue on both ends and in the center, and then just fold that right over your double strip of craft foam. Do that all the way around on both seams. Next, take a piece of hemp twine long enough to wind twice around your wrapping paper roll and just twist the ends around themselves. You do that with 4 sets. Then put a little bit of hot glue on the end of your wrapping paper tube and push the hemp twist into that. Just cut off the end when you get all the way around. You want to leave the space between the 2 middle strings a little wider. Then you're going to glue a non-twisted piece of hemp twine between each set of those. Next, get yourself some puff paint, and you're just going to draw a bunch of swirls on the handle, because that's the way Sauron's mace was in the movie. And you'll go all the way around with the puff paint swirls. Then do the same thing, making puff paint swirls on the cardstock sections. If you have a puff paint with a wider tip, use that one to make it a little bit bigger than the bottom of the handle. And do that to both sections all the way around. So then glue your clay mace blades onto the wrapping paper roll at the bottom and the top. You want to make sure that they're evenly spaced all the way around. And so here it is, fully dried before the coating of spray paint. Now before you spray paint it, you're also going to want to add another layer of clay in between each of the blades at the bottom and at the top, because right now it's just hot glue holding it on and it's not going to be real substantial. So you want to put clay in between each of the blades all the way around to help hold it on there. So just smush a little bit of clay in between each section. Here it is all clayed up. And just leave that to dry. And when it's dry, you're going to find that there's cracks where the clay pulls away from the blades. Just fill those in with hot glue, and you can be as messy as you want because the hot glue looks like solder once it's been spray painted. So then give the entire thing a coating of metallic silver spray paint. Then mix together some silver and black acrylic paint. It'll give you a darker silver color. Then you're just going to dab that right over the silver spray paint coating. You want to be a little bit messy because you don't want the entire thing covered. You want to leave a little bit of space in between because it gives it the look of hammered metal. And of course you'll do the blades as well. So once the blades are dry, you're going to fill in the engraved part with black paint. You do that all the way around. Then you're just going to lightly brush some black paint over the puff paint lines. And so here's the finished detailing. And I painted over the hemp twine with black as well. And so here is the finished mace.